Hello there, my name is Mike Nsonwu. I'm the author of a book called All Screwed Up, and I'm here to discuss it today. Well, I was a prison officer with Her Majesty's Prison Service for about 10 years. I retired after 10 years of service due to mitigating circumstances. Colloquially, you call prison officers screws, because in the olden days they used to do a screw thing in order to lock it up for the inmates and all that. So it's an amalgamation of the names screws, and I just said all screwed up. And spiritually speaking, that it has to do with my view that the world is a bit screwed up. It took me about 13 years. I mean, prior to this, I wasn't a writer, but it's a story I thought and felt that needed to be told. So it took me quite a long time, but eventually I was able to do it with coalition with editors and all sorts. Eventually I had a finished product. Well, the inspiration came from what I witnessed whilst I was a prison officer in the prison service. I witnessed inequalities, I witnessed racism, and I felt it was a story that had to be told in order to reflect those experiences. Now, an incident happened that actually propelled it and made it happen a lot faster. I was physically attacked by fellow officers. There were 4 fellow officers of Her Majesty's Prison Service, and I went through the motions of trying to get justice, and it was denied, and it all culminated in me writing the book All Screwed Up. Oh, very interesting question. Actually, something happened. The background I come from, my father was in the police force in Nigeria. And I grew up as a police kid, so I've always had an affinity for law enforcement. And when I came here initially, I observed the kind of racism that was rampant here, the way black kids were treated and all that. And I went into some sort of silly little incident with the police, and I realized, hang on, you got to get into law enforcement in order to protect yourself. So that was part of why I wanted to join law enforcement. And I chose the prisons because I had seen the police side of things, and I felt, hang on, this is something I can actually be contributory to, the rehabilitation and of human beings. That really appealed to me. The entire thing is about awareness,
right.
Jeff. Yes, everything is about awareness. We naturally, culturally, and traditionally operate from limitations of our understanding, but things like All Screwed Up gives you an insight into the way the cultures clash, the way things have unfolded over time, and the way that we've been looking at life thinking, hang on, there's a them and us attitude. There's nothing like them and us. Everything is us. If we are able to rehabilitate and reformat people into better citizens, it's something that benefits society. If we don't, if we have a throw away the key attitude and do not go through that rehabilitative format, then we have problems in the future for our societies. It doesn't matter which society it is. So the key note is that we have to look at various ways to rehabilitate human beings. The concept of incarceration is very, very demeaning to the human being. I know that crimes are committed, but there must be ways of getting people to be accountable for those crimes rather than just incarcerating them. And if you do incarcerate them as a form of punishment, it should be looked at from that angle, that they're going through, they've been punished by being incarcerated in the first place. So the next step, of course, is to look at how to rehabilitate them. If you do not do that, all you're turning into society is just criminals who go through a criminal school, and ultimately society pays for that.
Now,
in terms of physical comfort, obviously yes. But the effects on the individual is the same. Incarceration, when you're locked up in a place and you do not have access to free movement or freedom, it has the same impact. It doesn't matter what kind of luxury you're in, even if you're in a five-star hotel. If you're denied that capability to open that door yourself, and you're told when to come out and when to go in, it does have a crazy effect on the individual. It does. When I started writing All Screwed Up, remember we were still going through traditional formats of publishers and things like that. And in the course of writing it, the internet came of age, and I used the facilities of the internet. And initially, I had such a negative reaction in terms of I was challenging the status quo, so to speak. I was like, what's going on here? What are we doing? We're funding, the criminality that is happening in society. We're doing that. So what are we doing exactly? Are we trying to rehabilitate people? Are we just are we just throwing out the keys and leaving it to be what it is? My argument was ultimately, this is what leads to, crime being rampant, and then we're jacking up budgets in order to fight those same crimes which we have created by not taking good care of these people in the first place. So it becomes a vicious cycle. The challenges were immense in terms of bringing that profound awareness to the public and say, because prisons are sort of like the last bastion of racism, all sorts of things going in there. You're talking about incredible powers people have over fellow human beings in terms of the punishments, in terms of the rules they have to follow, in terms of things like that. So you start looking at it and going, where is how are we rehabilitating that? Are we reorientating them towards being better citizens? Are we just going to continuously fund it? It just became a mad thing. Okay, I'll read some extracts from the book. As these experiences I've been through have brought me to these realizations, they've helped to turn something scary and bad into something positive. For that, I'll be eternally grateful. Because if this has restored hope for one person, then my job here is done. I may no longer be a prison officer, but I honestly wish that the lifelines that exist between all human beings, the spiritual connection we share, will help to continue to build the much needed rehabilitation in the world today. Reforming people before they need to be reformed take victims and criminals out of the recycling loop. Whether we take them out before they even enter, or during or after, it has to stop somewhere. It's a mad world. Accepting that we already have paradise here on this planet, in this life, but we're screwing it up, is the start of solving the problems. We have deviated from what is real. There's more to life than this, and it exists outside of four walls of a cell. Whether the cell is real, bricks and mortar, or self-created. Reality check. We live on average 70 to 100 years. In fact, the longer we live, the more the biological body deteriorates. Within this time span, we acquire determined experience and live life based on our cultural, religious, traditional understandings, and yet we tenaciously cling to material things which we ironically leave behind when we die. In my humble opinion, we never left the Garden of Eden. It is still here. Look around you. Trees still blossom and provide food and oxygen. The earth provides for us bountifully from within. Most of the staple diets of the world grow freely and were not manufactured. What was manufactured was the system of delivery. Economic systems were created, and thus inequalities sprang up. We are born without names and are named by the world via families, and ultimately we die leaving the name behind. I find it amusing when people describe the afterlife from a personalized point of view. I ask the poignant question, do you really think you're going to be standing in front of God and saying, you are God, and I am Michael, Peter, Janet, whatever. I think that's the highest form of egoism. The world we have created is not reality, it is only mind created. And until we acknowledge the spirit, God, Allah, Brahman, quantum particles, etc., which underlies all creation, I'm afraid we'll continue to create the turmoil. Are we going to wake up and realize that all of our problems are self-inflicted? Are we going to stop quoting doctrine and realize it is our purpose to act out these doctrines and not the theoretical expositions of it? Of course, this is the beginning. My name is Michael Nsonwu. My father was Michael Nsonwu. My mother was a Scottish woman called Patricia Macaulay. And I was born in 1959, 7th of July, and which makes me 58 this year somehow, getting older and tired. But there you go. Yeah, I had most of my formative stages were in Nigeria. I was actually present during the war. I experienced the war I was between the ages of 7 and 11 during the time of the conflict, and I had a harrowing experience as a child, seeing the brutality of what war does to people. So it's something that I've been going through a lot of things in life that are reflective of the nature of what we had in life, and because of it, we've I would say I have a lot to contribute in terms of making this place a better place. I'll read some extracts from the book. As these experiences I've been through have brought me to these realizations, they've helped to turn something scary and bad into something positive. For that, I'll be eternally grateful. Because if this has restored hope for one person, then my job here is done. I may no longer be a prison officer, but I honestly wish that the lifelines that exist between all human beings, the spiritual connection we share, will help to continue to build the much needed rehabilitation in the world today. Reforming people before they need to be reformed, take victims and criminals out of the recycling loop. Whether we take them out before they even enter or during or after, it has to stop somewhere. It's a mad world. Accepting that, and accepting that we already have paradise here on this planet, in this life, but we're screwing it up, is the start of solving the problems. We have deviated from what is real. There's more to life than this, and it exists outside of four walls of a cell. Whether the cell is real, bricks and mortar, or self-created. Reality check. We live on average 70 to 100 years. In fact, the longer we live, the more the biological body deteriorates. Within this time span, we acquire, determine, experience, and live life based on our cultural, religious, traditional understandings, and yet we tenaciously cling to material things which we ironically leave behind when we die. In my humble opinion, we never left the Garden of Eden. It is still here. Look around you. Trees still blossom and provide food and oxygen. The earth provides for us bountifully from within. Most of the staple diets of the world grow freely and were not manufactured. What was manufactured was the system of delivery. Economic systems were created and thus inequalities sprang up. We are born without names and are named by the world via families, and ultimately we die leaving the name behind. I find it amusing when people describe the afterlife from a personalized point of view. I ask the poignant question, do you really think you're going to be standing in front of God and saying, you are God, and I am Michael, Peter, Janet, whatever? I think that's the highest form of egoism. The world we have created is not reality, it is only mind created. And until We acknowledge the spirit, God, Allah, Brahman, quantum particles, etc., which underlies all creation. I'm afraid we'll continue to create the turmoil. Are we going to wake up and realize that all of our problems are self-inflicted? Are we going to stop quoting doctrine and realize it is our purpose to act out these doctrines and not the theoretical expositions of it? Of course, this is the beginning. We as Nigerians, for whatever reasons our country was made up, ironically initially was made up to serve the colonial masters. But in due course, we have all grown to become, I mean, I went through stages where there were federal government colleges that promoted unity in Nigerians. The NYSE things, programs like NYSE, interchange, inter-city, inter-state changes, exchanges, that promoted oneness and cultural unity. And that diversity of populace that we have, it's in fact the only country in the world that has the same kind of this, which is even actually manufactured, is the United States of America. But Nigeria has this natural diversity that is so contributory to who we have become. And we must do everything within ourselves to keep that unity going, because in that diversity is where we have the richness of the world. Because we can then contribute and become the whole rather than divisive. You know, the Nigerian political system, unfortunately, has been hijacked by a group of people who've been in power since 1960. They've never left it. They don't allow people to come in. You have to go through all sorts of rituals and obligations in order to serve, and that is so wrong. So this is where we're getting it wrong. I mean, we have a system of governance that has to do with something foreign to our different traditions and cultures. You know, for there to be democracy truly, there has to be an informed public. 99% of Nigerians are not informed on the issues. They're still on the borderline of poverty and all that. And people take advantage of this, and thus that's why you have the chaos you have in the country. Because you're not looking at people who actually have truism in their system of delivery, or truism in what they want to do. So wrong. Because we're using a foreign system of governance, which is democracy. Well, it's not foreign to the Igbo culture of Nigeria. It's foreign to most other Nigerians, but it's not, because the Igbos have actually spiritually evolved to become democratic by nature. And that is so important. But somehow along the line we've lost it. We've deviated into all sorts of things. But like I said, the system of governance is so important, because you have to have people accountable for what they do, or what their system of governance is. You must, if you do not have that, as long as they have this foreign notion that, our people will say "Oro Beke," that is the white man's job. It's like so foreign from his cultural intellect that he believes he can go there, grab, and go back and be, one with his people. Unfortunately, of course, the corruption has derailed into what you were saying. What you're talking about now is the details of how do we implement this. We just butcher our way along the way. We just try to, whichever way it goes, it doesn't really matter as long as I have enough money for myself. And consequently, the people are suffering. I mean, you have ridiculous. I mean, there's this place in Olo, Ezago local government area. There's this cashew plantation that's been abandoned since 1966. M.I. Okpara did it in those days in 1966. There are palm kernel plantations in Imo State that just lie fallow, surrounded by poverty-ridden people and villages, and meanwhile they're sitting on $2-3 billion a year investments that if it could just be got together, these things will provide for the people. So you see, it's all screwed up is part of this. It's all about the mindset. We have to change that mindset, because the Nigerian mindset right now is fallow, is become bloated, is stagnant, and there has to be a proper change. And my suggestions are that we must bring in fresh blood into the political system. That's the only way we can tackle this. Real fresh blood, not the acolytes of these people sitting in power, because the irony of it is they have grabbed so much money that they are so paranoid about somebody else coming in and probing them, and that is the problem. And the stupidity of it all is at the end of the day they die and leave it all anyway. You have situations where somebody dies, leaves $1 billion. His children rush to the banks in the UK or wherever it is and go, "Oh, my father left there." And they go to him, "So what does your father do?" And he says, "Oh, he's a governor of a state." And they said, "Oh, how much was he making?" And he says, £50,000 a year. Okay, so how did he get $1 billion or £1 billion? Oh, the person goes, "Well, it doesn't really matter. Anything you can, I beg, find me something." And that's the ridiculity of it all. And we have people, dying, people, no hospitals, no roads, no infrastructures. It's ridiculous. It is. Something has to give. Something has to happen. We have to start looking at how do we heal ourselves, which is what All Screwed Up is all about. How do we heal ourselves? What do we do to have that reconnection of spirit, that connection that makes life bubble? Because our heaven is here. It's all in the scriptures. It doesn't matter which one it is, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Buddhism, it doesn't matter. It all underlies the same thing. It all talks about the connectivity. It all talks about, because it's like when I say belo. The point is, if you don't have that peace of understanding, how do you enjoy life? The dynamics of life. Life becomes tumultuous. It becomes problematic, and all these things are just mind creations. So we must look at it. Look at our place. We have beautiful food that grows freely. We have incredible diversity of food and weather and all that. And look at us. If you take a cursory look at Nigeria, it's like a forgotten place. It's sad, but it's true. The power of God. You see, when people talk about God, even in the Bible, it tells you God is not a human being. God is light. God is the power that exists within all of us. God is the breath we take. Of course, He's never lost. It's just a change in perspective, a change in the way we reason, a change in the way we look at each other, a change in, after all, look at our cultures. They're celebratory in nature. We used to have cultures of we throw parties, we celebrate life. That is what it should be. That's where the joy is. If I eat alone, how much can I eat? How many beds can I sleep? How many cars can I drive? It's that that interaction with people. That's what brings the joy. So we already have everything. So what is it that is different? That diversity, allowing people to poison our minds, people to, that's what the All Screwed Up is about. We're all screwed up. We need to unscrew it and make it happen and make ourselves become whole again. The point is, we lost our connection with that. That in itself, that in a way explains how it's not just Nigeria, it's the whole world. The whole world is moving from that shift. It's like an Indian, an American Indian saying that says, when you've cut down the last of the trees, let us see whether the white man is going to eat the money. You cut the last of the trees in order to make paper money and all that. I think it's real and exhaust all the resources of the world. Then what? You look at the papers, you look at the information that is coming through now. We're talking about things like climate change. We're talking about irreparably damaging the earth. So we have to change perspective. It's not loss. It's the unfoldment of spirit. Where we're headed, the God within drives us. And as long as we have that unity in consciousness, that unity, and eventually we'll arrive there. And that's the play of life. That play is the diversity of life. So we have to look at it lighter, because at the end of the day, come on, man, nobody lives here alive. Every single person on earth today, nobody is going to live this earth alive. That's the point. And because we're not living at all. So why are we scared? Why do we live in fear? Why do we trap our minds in prisons, self-constructed prisons? That, you know, I mean, look at Nigeria, for instance. You have, we almost live in like an open prison. You know, you have people scuttling home at 7 o'clock to lock themselves in, barricade themselves indoors. What kind of life is that? Think about it. When we have the sun, the moonlight, the things that will make us. I remember as a kid when we used to do things like Egwu, you know, stuff like that during the war. It was something that brought us together, that united us, that made us feel like one. Even though we were impoverished, but we even when we ate and looked at each other, we were happy. So these are the joys of life. It's not what we, you know, what we own, or what material thing, or I'm bigger than you. These things are meaningless. At least have the standards of the people, so that, you know, people can wake up and live and enjoy and say, wow, how wonderful, I'm glad to be alive. Rather than waking up and looking at life from very miserable eyes and looking at life from a sense of hopelessness. We have to start moving towards that change of perspective, that change in the mind. The mindset has to change. That's the most important thing.